Good morning, my love muffins. This is Reverend Sue from All Paths to God, recording live from my living room. You know that saying, take my advice because I'm not using it? You know, that's been one of my fears since I became a minister. I wanted to be certain that I was taking my own advice, that I was practicing what I preach, that I was walking the talk. But I realized that in our belief system, we can't lose sight of how important it is to talk the talk. As was said in Genesis, first there was the Word. First there was the talk. Know the truth? I hear you. And the truth shall set us free. That's why Ernest Holmes developed what he called spiritual mind treatment, the 5 stages of affirmative prayer, to provide a formula for talking the talk. Not that we had to use it exactly or any specific words, but in doing research about why prayer was effective and recognizing that it was effective across all cultures and all religions, but there were some particular ingredients that were consistent among all those who said their prayers were answered. And he developed those ingredients into this structure, this formula for prayer, for talking the talk. It's just a method to talk about God, to talk about grace and good, until we believe it. Believe it more than any conditions to the contrary that may actually be occurring in our life experience at any given time. Why? Because it matters. It makes a difference. Consciousness creates, thoughts are things. Talk becomes the reality of our experience, and it impacts everyone and everything today, tomorrow, and forever. So we want to be what tomorrow needs. And there's really no better time to practice this than right now. We're cut off from our typical methods of helping and serving and having connection with each other, from leaving our soul signature on the universe. And talking the talk is one sure way to benefit ourselves and to benefit everyone. Talking the talk, the God talk, the truth talk, actually doesn't come very easy to us. We seemingly struggle to find the words. It's just not spontaneous and effortless. Certainly not the way talking about our grievances, our dramas, and our traumas come easy to us. We don't seem to have any struggle flowing with a stream of thoughts and words and consciousness in living color and great detail relative to life's challenges. But when it comes to talking the talk, talking about the divine presence and power that is the ultimate, infinite, eternal truth of our lives, we end up talking, if at all, in terms of broad generalities. We need to talk the talk. If consciousness creates, and it does, then the more we talk about the negative, the more specific and detailed and precise we are, the more specific and detailed and precise the law is in producing and delivering unwanted negative conditions and experiences in our lives that match the talk. So we want to talk the talk of God and truth. Esther Hicks refers to our ease in talking about our dramas and traumas as building up a momentum around what we don't want. And she talks about how hard it is to stop momentum that's moving in one direction. And her very vivid analogy is to imagine that you're standing around a car and it begins to drift a little bit, then you just put your hands out and stop it from rolling. And now to take that same image and put that car at the top of a hill and have it start rolling downhill where you're standing at the bottom of the hill, and then put your hands out and stop it. Obviously, we can detect the difference between the momentum built up and how difficult it would be to try to stop it once it has that much power and energy behind it. And Esther says, and we all know, it is hard to stop momentum that's moving in a direction. She describes it like a speeding train going in the wrong direction. You just can't turn it on a dime. You have to gradually stop it, then turn it, and then gradually build up momentum in the opposite direction. So she presents a very logical approach to shifting the negative momentum by moving incrementally from specific to general, and then from general to specific. So first, we gradually apply our brakes to the detailed and specific talk about what's going wrong and who's going wrong, which speaks to the absence of God and grace and good flowing abundantly in our lives. Esther says, once we have so much negative momentum going, we can't just get rid of it, but we can clean up a little bit of it at a time by simply not including so much of it now, and not talking so much about it now, and not talking so much about it now, and not talking so much about it now, until we're finally standing in a place where there's not so much of it, because we're not talking so much about it now. Then we start speaking in our broad generalities about the presence of the presence and the power of the power. And then we begin to build up positive momentum by filling in the details. And right now, people mostly speak about God and good by saying it's all God, it's all good, God will provide. We have some general statements, and then we have a difficult time embellishing them. And this is where we want to talk the talk and build up momentum. That's the point at which, once we put the brakes on this negative talk, that we want to talk more about the truth as we know it. We want to include it more now, and include it more now, and include it more now, and include it in our conversation more now, and talk about it more now. Talk the talk, and then form will follow. That's the law of the universe. It's all in the details. And that's why Ernest Holmes provided the structure for prayer, these 5 stages for moving from general ideas about God to very specific ideas of it showing up for good in our lives. The first stage, recognition. The goal of this is just to know that there is a God, to claim there is a God, to claim there is a power greater than we are, that there's only God, there's only one presence, there's only one power. The love and the law of the universe, one infinite creator, one creation, and one creative process. We claim and declare and talk to our mind and to our understanding and to our heart that God is the eternal principle of life, that God is the infinite law of love, and that love transcends every condition unlike itself. We remind ourselves that all of God is present at every point in time and space, that there's no place where God is not. There's no place where we end and God begins. God, the divine energy, the divine source, life, love, law, is spiritual substance just waiting to take form. The formless is eternally willing and able and ready to take form, any form. God is infinite potential and possibilities. Recognition, we talk about the reality, the existence, the characteristics of what this power greater than we are is. And as we hear our words and convince ourselves that there is just this one power, then we move to the second stage, which is unification. And that is that this one power's life is our life now. We speak words that join us with this power, that God is never separated from me or anyone else or any situation or event. I and all other things have complete union with God at all times. Talk the talk. God and goodness are the center of my being. I am one of its unique, diverse vehicles of expression. These hands and these feet and these limbs and these bones and these muscles and these joints are all made by God, in the likeness of God, for God, so they can express as God here in this earthly place, on this worldly journey. We are one with that which is perfect, whole, and complete. So we move from recognizing that there's God and then unifying with God, recognition and unification. Knowing that God would not design a flawed or unworthy temple in which to reside. So we move through these first general stages of knowing that there's a power greater than we are, and knowing that that power animates our life. That power is who we are. That power expresses through us and as us. And then we move to the third stage, which is realization. And realization is where we can really add the details to talking the talk, regardless of the circumstances we find ourselves in. Realization is looking through the eyes of vision rather than sight. And rather than speaking what we're experiencing at the moment, we talk what is the truth of who we are and what we want to unfold, what we know could be the reality of our experience right now if we allowed the flow of God and grace and good in our lives. And we can talk this talk about any specific condition that we would like to change, whether that's illness, whether that's poverty, whether that's conflict in some way. We can speak in terms of God and grace and good to those particular situations. Or we can just talk in general with lots of details about God and grace and good showing up in our lives, everyone's lives, the world. And what a critical time to be doing that when there is so much talk about the changes that we've been facing, the struggle that people have been challenged with, and the relationships that are going on politically in our country. And so realization is stating, describing in detail what life looks like if and when God were permitted to flow in all its goodness. So we speak the words no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, whether they're in our head or whether they're out loud. I turn my thought inward, Godward. And God radiates within me. And God knows itself and shows itself through my footsteps. God speaks to me and through me. God speaks to me through the instants and circumstances of my day. There is a universal creative power in me that flows from the word to the form. The law of creation is within my grasp right here and right now. It's available for my use and it's receptive to my direction. The limitless resources of God are now at my command, as the law must obey my every word. That is the law of the universe. And there's nothing in me that can hinder the expression of this goodness. Nothing that can oppose it or reverse it. No doubt, no fear, no history of disbelief can deter this seeding and rooting of this truth in my consciousness. I refuse to accept that anything other than good is attracted into my life and into my circumstances, regardless of what I see around me. Anything like good that shows up has nothing to do with who I am. It only expresses who I was. I choose to move Godward, to move forward. I'm no longer willing to stumble over something behind me. I give that up. I move Godward. And God is never bound by the form it takes. No form is permanent. All forms return to the formless and can take shape again. Conditions are all subject to change. They're not preordained, they're not fated, it's not our unchangeable, unavoidable karma. Conditions are not constant, they're not predictive of the future. And form is not random. It is methodical and precise and deliberate and absolute. And that power is in me right now, regardless of what I see happening around me. I command the power of talking the talk. Undesirable conditions are but proof that I have the choice to create desirable conditions. It's the same law, pointed in a different direction. It's just the train with momentum in a different direction. And I know there can be no inadequacy in me. I know there can be no insufficiency in my life, in my being, or in my doing, because there can be none in God. And if God is in me, then there can be none in me. I know the wisdom of God flows from me. I know God sees the bigger picture. God knows the answer to all my questions, to the things I wonder, to the issues that nag at me, to the conflicts that challenge me, to the traumas that torment me. I claim and I declare and I talk my talk that God is now in charge. God, grace, good, is behind the wheel. God is in the driver's seat, steering me in a direction that will most please and prosper me. Talk the talk, talking details about God showing up in my life. God knows what paths are best, what direction is most meaningful, what choices are most rewarding. God walks ahead of me, through me, as me, and leads me to those situations that are constructive and worthwhile. I claim the activity in my life of God and good and grace in everyone's life. God always knows what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And I am internally driven to act accordingly. Whatever I should know, I will know. Whatever I should do, I will do. Whatever belongs to me will come to me. Talk the talk. Just talking the truth to the point that we believe it more than any negative condition that we're experiencing. Building up momentum by speaking specifics and details into the appearance, the flow of God and grace and good in our lives. And once we have done that and we reach a point where we just have a sense of completion, we have a sense of we have talked ourselves to a place where we can feel that we are resting in greater peace, in greater optimism, in a sense of expectation that whatever is happening that we don't like does not need to remain, and that we will begin to see a shift because we trust this law of the universe will take our words and act on them. And so we are in a place where we can find peace in the mystery of God and in the precision of the law, and excitement in looking forward and toward the unfoldment of improved conditions. And then once we get there, Thanksgiving is the fourth stage. Showing gratitude, experiencing gratitude, talking the talk, talking gratitude. I am grateful for God and good and grace residing in me, using me as a vehicle, being ever willing, ready, and able to express through my life and as my life. I'm grateful for free will, for the choice to be able to access this presence and this power in any way, at any time that I want to. The divine spirit that perfectly plans and knowingly does flows through my life. And I'm grateful that I know that what I speak and what my mind accepts as true is reflected in my life. I'm even grateful for those conditions I don't desire, as they show me where my momentum has been focused. They provide a blueprint for me of how and where I need to put on the brakes and where I need to talk the talk in more detail. I am grateful my world is recreated by my inner spiritual awareness of the presence and the power and the action of God in my life. I'm so thankful that there is nothing but good in me, intended for me, or that can happen to me. I am grateful that I now experience in life the truth and nothing but the truth. So help me, God. Talking the talk. And then the last stage is as we reach this place of completion, that our words have filled in the detail and the specifics of God showing up in our life and conditions moving toward the grace and good that is the truth of who we are. Then we need to release it to the law of the universe for it to do its work. We've created the mold. Now we need to let the law move the substance of the universe in such a way that it unfolds in our life. So we talk the talk of release. I let go and I let God. I release my words to the law that is infallible. I know that all the words that I speak are already done in the mind of God. The law is already acting on them to produce form around them in my life experience. I let go and I let God. And so it is. Amen and hallelujah. So Ernest Holmes gave us a formula to help us find words, a structure that we could use to fill in details so we talk the talk of God and grace and good. I know that there's one divine presence, one creative power in the universe, not because I was told it was so, not because I learned it was so, not because I think it's so, because it is so. But the law of creation is helpless without direction. Law has nowhere to go, nothing to do of itself. We don't need to force it to work. It's natural of creative power to take a form. That's its purpose in the universe. but it has no choice about what form to become. It must wait until we talk the talk. So your mission this week, if you so choose to accept it, is to talk the talk, my love muffins, and form will follow. So be what tomorrow needs. This is the way we can help each other in these challenging times. It's all in the details. Talk the talk of the presence of God in every circumstance, especially the circumstance that has great momentum toward a negative expression in life. Fill in the details of God and grace and good in that same very spot. Esther Hicks compares it to building a house. She says, we begin with a vision, with a plan, with a blueprint, and then we build a general foundation, and we erect a shell of a framework. It's just a skeleton when we start. A cement slab with 2x4s everywhere. It's more imaginations than substance. But as we fill in the details, as we put up the drywall and we add the doors and we add the windows, and as we fill in the detail, it becomes a tangible form, meaning we no longer have to imagine it. We can now see it. This is the purpose of talking the talk. And we've imagined some horrible things happening in our world. The only way they aren't going to grow and multiply in our lives is if we put the brakes on that imagining, that talking. And quite honestly, some of it is here in experience. It's true in experience, but it isn't the truth of who we are. So we need to talk the talk. Talk the talk of God and grace and good, and form will follow. Be what tomorrow needs, my love muffins. It's all in the details. We are not the ones who will deliver us to our destiny, but we are growing into them. Talk the talk. We are the people. Now is the time, and this is the way. Namaste, my friends.